Welcome to GCBS. In this episode of My Story, we are lucky to have the world champion Ben Robinson giving us his version of my story. Now, this one was recorded a while ago, so you'll have to excuse the reference to Easter. So without further ado, Ben, take it away.
Hi, my name's Ben Robinson and I compete in Canicross. First of all, I'd like to say shout out to Peter from Devon Howlers and his team who put on an awesome series of events down in Plymouth, the Noonan Bark, but also for asking a few of us to answer a few questions and keep everyone entertained, hopefully, during this period of lockdown, which I'm sure is challenging for everyone. So yeah, that's what I'm doing tonight. He sent me some questions and I'm going to try and answer them and give you a little insight into who I am, who the dogs are, what we do. I've chose to do it tonight when we're just taking a bit of time to free run the dogs. So I've got 5 of the dogs here with me. You can see Bolt with Weimaraner over there. He's our oldest dog, so he's 7 now. Nero, the large European sled dog who's just turned up, he's approaching 3. Little Nova, who's just run between them there, is our European hound who's just run through. This is our other European hound, Sky. And our own bred boy Zuma here running along with the ball. So yeah, they're just having a bit of fun. The only one missing from my dogs that I run that live at home with me, of those are probably the dog you maybe know the best, which is Blake. He doesn't exactly see eye to eye with Nero, so we'll run them separately. He's been out already this evening and he'll come out again before I head home. The other 2 dogs we compete with as well would be Sophie and Marshall, the other pup we bred, so Zuma's brother Marshall, and both those live with my father Matthew, for those of you who know him and probably seen those dogs around as well. My first dog that I actually had as a child was a family dog that I got when I was 10. That was a Cocker Spaniel named Becky. She was actually a show cocker, although she didn't really know that. She thought she was a working cocker. She tried to run around all the time, but never did any running with her. I wasn't a runner then at that point. Didn't know about the sport. So just had her as a family pet, though we were always obviously very active with her. And then our second family dog, so a companion for her, was a Sprocker named Tilly. It's just a Springer Cocker cross. And I was actually going to run with her. So I was running a little bit as a teenager by then, just competing in athletics, cross country, road, and was going to compete with this dog. Unfortunately, she had hip dysplasia, so it never came to light. We found that out when she was a young dog, so never even started training with her. We tried to keep her as active as possible, as you do, but yeah, she could never compete. And again, I wasn't aware of the sport then. It was still purely just trying to have a dog that I could kind of take with me on some runs. And that's actually how I got into Canicross myself. So who's Zuma's just joined us to rip up a stick. I had a Rottweiler. Our first dog, myself and my wife's first dog, was a Rottweiler who, again, we didn't run and didn't ever intend to for obvious reasons, although I know some do run with a small amount of success. But the runs I was doing, obviously longer runs and at a decent pace, and never really felt were suitable for her. So I looked to get a dog. We wanted a companion for Ruby anyway, and then I wanted a dog that I could run with, so we looked into breeds and got Bolt. So he was the first dog that I got with the intention to run, and again at that point it was still just about a dog to accompany me on training runs. So I ran from when I was 14 to 17, and then I had about 6 years out of the sport, struggling with injuries, partly struggling to come back with injuries, and partly then had just sort of given up for a little bit of trying, and then came back at about 23. And had some success running off-road, running on softer surfaces, even if it was canal paths or fire track, anything like softer than the road surfaces that I trained on as a youngster. And so I felt really that would obviously suit getting the dog as well, and just him being able to come with me down the canal paths, in country parks, in woods and so on. So Bolt came, and started running with him when he was about a year, so started some short runs and built him up. And weirdly, just as he was approaching around about 18 months, we read in a magazine about this sport called Canicross. Didn't know anything about it at all, and literally just thought, I'm fit, he's fit, let's stick ourselves together and see what we can do, which is exactly what we did. We got some kit, We turned up to our first race, which was a Canicross event in July of would have been 2014, and yeah, just thought we'd give it a go, and he took to it really well. Here he is. Oh, running off, ignoring me like usual, and yeah, he took to it really well. He won the race on the first and the second day, won both races. We carried on that season to run go 24 races with Canicross, unbeaten in the UK. There was 28 races in the season. The only 2 we missed was a weekend where he had an injury, had tightness in his back, so of course we missed that one. And the other weekend was the birth of my daughter, so again obviously missed that one. So yeah, that's sort of how I got into the sport. And I think the part of the sport that I'd enjoy the most, I'd have to say, is competition. Obviously, coming in as an athlete, I thrive on competition. I really buzz off competition. Even though I like the journey, I like training with them, preparing with the dogs. My mind's always on the goal and what that is. Obviously, a big part of it is about seeing what we can do together. So that always does remain in the goal. When I say competition, it is intrinsic in terms of, I want to deliver. I want to see what I can do with the dogs. But I just love to compete. I love to be out there. I love to put on a show, and just try and do our best. It's really when you can test yourselves. I mean, even in training, it's not quite like on the day where you've tapered all your training to it. You've got the adrenaline, you've got the buzz, and you can just go and run your fastest and perform your best with your dog. So that would have to be my favourite part of the sport. We train probably something every day if I look at certainly myself and the dogs. So as a rough idea, I'd probably run 5 or 6 days a week. I'd always have a rest day. If I needed it, there'd maybe be a second one, or certainly at points of the training, but there'd be at least a rest day in there. I'd run a few days easy, so within that there'd probably be like a short recovery run and like a longer easy run at least, and then sort of like a hill-based session, an interval-based session, and then probably at least a Canicross session in the week, even sort of out of season, even if it's short distance in the summer, and juggling the dogs and so on, and depending on goals. But yeah, I'd probably have a Canicross session in season, and preparing for sort of bigger races. There'd probably be at least 2 Canicross sessions, so the emphasis just shifts a little bit, and I'd run a bit more with the dogs. But those other sessions I talk about would be without the dogs, although obviously where I could include them free, which is some of the dogs sometimes they'd be free. The dogs themselves, I'd say they would have like 1 or 2 harness sessions out of season. So again, that could be like the 1 Canicross with me, and then maybe another on wheels. So more scooter than bike I use, just because of the crossover to Canicross. I feel it's better for them. And then try for 2 free runs, so they try and sort of have 2 like proper free runs where I'd encourage them to free run, so they'd be in as a group, or like next to me running. So both those things would obviously make them run a little bit harder, rather than just sort of letting them play around in the garden or whatever. And then they'd have probably at least 2 walks, harness walks, so walk them on a shoulder harness, like a half harness, but I let them pull, so don't encourage them not to pull at all. I let them pull and view that as like their strength workout. So it's not the most fun for me, but they have a blast and they get to pull even on those days. And then in season, again, their harness sessions would just up, so probably 3 to 4 harness sessions a week for them. So obviously maybe a slight shift in their other things, but again, the same as with myself, there'd always be 1 rest day, and by rest day I mean complete rest day. We don't leave the house, we just rest and let them recover, which I think is important for them when their head's so into the sport and they compete so hard, so they don't just run easy like a lot of normal dogs. So I think it's important they recover. Sometimes it would be two recoveries, and then closer to races we'd obviously ease off, or in the weeks leading up we'd maybe put a few more intense sessions in, but specific sessions, harness sessions, and then very close to the race we'd ease off, and then we'd probably always rest just before, so they're ready to compete. I did start to introduce the dogs, but I'll do so again now. I'll take a little walk and show you the dogs you probably know most. So as I said, the dog who's not out with me right at this moment in time is Blake. So Blake is our 4-year-old Greyster. He was bred by Magda Didier in Belgium. and I got him in April of 2017. So as a pup, they can't come over till they're about 15 weeks when you get from Europe or abroad. But I got him there. Actually went over to race in Germany, and we stopped at Magda's on the way, and then we were at the race with her as well, and picked Blake up. So he was my first purpose-bred dog.
So I introduced you a little bit to Bolt earlier, but here he is again. So he's our 7-year-old Weimaraner, the first dog I got to run with, and the first dog I competed Canicross with. So he has got 2 British titles of Canicross. I took my first 2 British titles with him, and he's got a European medal in relay as well. He's got a 13:55 PB over 5k with me. That was at a park run back in 2016, possibly, I want to say 2016, 17 maybe. So yeah, that's Bolt. He still trains, does a little bit with me. He only really likes to race kind of short distances or run short distances in harness, but he's always with the pack here free. Loves to be free and just coming on the walks and that with us. But yeah, he'll run, but he'll do sort of 1 or 2k he's kind of buzzing for, and then after that he doesn't really want to do too much. He likes a bit of an easier life. So next oldest of who we've got here would be Nero over there. So Nero is our European sled dog who will be free this month, and he came from Czech Republic, from Martina Stepankova lines, the same as Sophie, my father's dog, who we've got, who will be 4 next month. So they came from the same lines. Nero is just short of 40 kilos most of the time, so he's about that now, about 78 centimeters to the shoulder, so he's a big boy. I've not really tried yet to like hammer a 5k with him, but we've ran in training like 13 low, so he probably I'm hoping will break 13 with him when I sort of try. At the moment he's running Canicross really well against the other boys, so yeah, quite looking forward to that. But I race him on scooter as well, so we raced scooter this year, and he's got a British title in scooter for the first year I competed scooter seriously this year. Then we've got Nova over here, so she's the smallest dog that we run with. So she's a European hound from Martin Dickel's kennels in Germany. The interesting thing about Nova is she actually comes from a middle distance kennel, so it was a bit of an experiment, if you like, myself and the breeders, to try and Canicross like what they term like a middle distance hound. So Martin races 8 dogs on sort of 20 to 40k snow races multiple days in a row. So she was a bit of a test to see how she'd run 10ks, half marathons, maybe even marathon eventually, but we'll see. So she certainly runs like that. She runs really well all day long. You can't tire her out. She keeps the others running well as well, so she's really good in training. If you want to just use her as a rabbit, she can just run like all day and just the others can chase her and that, and she's real good with all of them as well. She's probably our sweetest dog. Loves a cuddle, loves the kids, as they all do, but she's just sort of extra special at home with them. She really likes being around them. Then who have we got? Sky, so our other female, along with obviously Sophie of Dad's and Nova, from Indra in Lithuania. Really good dog. So she's not sort of competed a great deal yet because she's obviously one of the younger dogs, but my plan this year, if it gets to go ahead, was to do the TDM, and I'd race Nova and Sky. But Sky's really strong. She's getting stronger all the time. She's about 25 to 26 kilos now. So getting stronger. Runs really well, alone or with the others. She pairs really nicely with Nova or Blake, and runs well with them as well. Nova, by the way, who's run off over there, is about 20 to 21 kilos most of the time. So she's definitely our smallest of these guys. And here's Zuma. So he is the boy we bred ourselves. So he's out of Blake and Sophie of my dad's dog, Sophie. And then we've got Zuma and we've got Marshall. So Zuma's one of a couple of the biggest in the litter. So he's about 35 kilos. and they're 11 months now, so I don't think he'll get much bigger though. He's where he needs to be now. He's about 74 centimeters and 35 kilos. He's a strong boy and already taken to Canicross really well, so he's sort of competing with Blake and Nero in training over sort of short distances, and yeah, really promising, really positive running. Crazy dog, just like his mum Sophie, so really hard work at home, but a dream to be out running with. So here he is, off he goes. So yeah, I'm going to change these guys around. I'll let you see Blake out quickly, and then we're going to get some running done. And this is Blake. So here he is, he's come out for his second blast. We're going to do some actual running in a minute. I'm going to get the kit on and do some free running myself. So I'll now do a free run with this group that's out, and then rotate back to Nero and Bolt, and we'll run them as well. So yeah, Blake is the father to Zuma here, and also Marshall, like I said, so with Sophie. And also he's obviously, as you probably know, my most successful dog, first purpose bred, and the one I've had the most success with. So I got PB over 5,000 with him of 12.24. That was at a park run, and I've got the most titles with him. So I've got 3 British titles of Canicross with him, multiple European titles and relay successes, and 2 world titles with him as well. So yeah, he's a really good dog, does anything, runs for me, runs for others, runs scooter, runs with the other dogs. So yeah, he's just a great all-round dog. Crazy, although maybe outdone by his son here. But yeah, really great dog, and physically he's probably about 71 centimeters, and his weight can vary quite a lot. He does sort of lean down a lot when we do a lot of work together, but he's running around now at about 32 kilos, which is probably his heaviest ever. But he's competed anything in his early years. He was sort of 26 upwards to 28, and then in sort of last season I probably was running him at about 28, 29, and I'm hopeful this season now, or next season now obviously, that he maybe hold closer to 30, so he's sort of maturing a little bit and we're able to keep a bit more weight in him, so that's been really good. So in terms of other sports I compete, it's just really scooter with the dogs is the only other thing I do. So I do a lot of scooter training, as I said earlier. Don't do much else, a little bit of bike, but don't compete it, just compete scooter really. So I find, again, as I said earlier, it just translates the best to sort of physicalities of the dogs for sort of Canicross, so stick to that. Had a little bit of success, so won some races with Blake and Sky as a pair, and Blake and Nova as a pair, I think it was, down in Newham, and then yeah, Nero at a British level. So yeah, we'll hopefully carry on doing that, both as single and pairs. Just a nice change, and just something nice to do with the dogs, a little bit different, a little bit of a challenge.
My fondest memory with the dogs, so in and out of the sport, I've lowered it down to sort of 2. So in the sport would have to be taking my first world title with Blake. It was obviously a realisation of a dream. So that was in Poland in 2017. And just, yeah, to realise that sort of everything you've committed, everything you've given has paid off, and you've sort of made it. If you like, I've got loads of goals to obviously carry on achieving, and it's always been a big part of what I want to do is the longevity in the sport. But of course, being world champion was just the ultimate goal, and to achieve that was pretty special and going to be hard to top, really. And then outside of the sport, but with the dogs, I probably have to say breeding our own litter. Again, a bit of a dream, and what we ended up with in terms of having Zuma and Marshall out of it. But just, that the other important side of everything to us, like having the dogs as family pets and really close to us, loving those as our pets first, and then being able to breed them and see the success of that was really special for us. So that would probably be my 2. Favourite course, Peter's throwing that in there. I bet he wants a few votes for Newnham. I'm going to sort of go a little bit of a podium as well. So I'll say my favourite course I'm going to give to Sweden for the dryland course they use there. Again, partly hard to beat for me because as a memory I've got a European championship title there and a world championship title there. So really hard to top, but I do like the course. It's a rolling course, it's a fast course, but enough to kind of challenge you. It's a little bit short, which maybe I'd like it to reach that full 5k, but it's about 4.5k, and it's really nice flowing course, and a really beautiful country. So I'm going to say that, and then I'll give Peter his Newnham in there in second place, and certainly my top UK course, because as he knows, I do appreciate what he does there and like it that in the UK, a lot of our courses, even where they call them hilly, they don't have a lot of elevation in, and Peter's done something good there with that course in that, you know, it is over 100 meters of elevation and a really tough climb, and I think it helps prepare us for some of the European races. I do give him a little bit of credit for helping me prepare for Belgium last year, which was hillier, and a lot of their courses are, and you know, I was able to prep Blake in a couple of races beforehand, and yeah, that helped out. So yeah, thanks Peter and team. And then in terms of advice for people starting out the sport, I'd absolutely recommend it as a sport for people to try. You know, it's just really special and really fun as well, just to run with your dog. The main reason why I'd say it's a great thing to do is just because, you know, your dog never lets you down. They always want to get out there. You know, you're not reliant on anybody letting you down, as you know, a lot of training partners and that, it's hard to find someone on your level, whatever that be, but the dog, yeah, will always be there with you, always there to come. You know, they're never going to let you down. They're always going to probably force you out that door, and then when you're out there and just training with them, it's just good motivation as well. And you know, we're all best friends with the dogs and that, aren't we, and just love to be out there with them. And then the sport itself, like even as a runner, and I obviously do run on my own, I still love to compete on my own, but there is something special about competing with the dog, and yeah, I just don't think that can be topped. So absolutely do it. In terms of advice, yeah, just like, it's cliche, but enjoy it, and just keep working hard, but don't sort of underestimate the power of doing a little bit yourself as well. You know, that can help your dog. So some runs on your own, some core stability work. I talked a little bit in a recent podcast with Nonstop about some of the stuff I do in terms of training, so you can catch up on that as well. I shared it on my page, Robinson Canicross, and there's some training tips there. So yeah, just don't underestimate that, because it will get even more fun with your dog when you can run a bit faster and just challenge yourself more. So even if you don't want to push yourself too hard, just doing a little bit can help. And on that note, yeah, here's Blake running back to see us. He's got the ball and Zuma here, and I'm going to go get the kit on and then do a bit of running just as the sun's setting. Going to get a couple of 5Ks in with each of the dogs, and then that's a wrap. So have a good Easter, everyone, and hopefully see you on the other side of all this for some racing. Cheers, and thanks very much to Peter and his team once again.
Wow, thank you, Ben, for that lovely little insight into your background. We hope you enjoyed this episode of My Story. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell for future episodes. We have more how-to episodes planned, as well as another news episode to be released soon. So we hope to see you soon, but bye-bye for now.